Jo Linehan, thank you. Got it right. Thank you so much for joining me on the Beauty of Truth podcast. It's an honour to have you in the Primal podcast studio. So thank you so much.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm so delighted to be here. Love the podcast. And we go back quite a while, so it's lovely to sit down and have a chat.
Did your makeup in Caroline's wedding 2018?
Yeah. And I still get comments about how nice it was.
Her first book launch.
Sorry, that's right. I forgot about that.
That was like 2016
or 17.
16 or 17.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago. Yeah, because I remember I always remember that year because one, it was Caroline's wedding and I had Avery. So that year sticks out for me.
It was a big year.
It was a big year. It was a big year. A life-changing year, some would say. But thank you so much for coming on. So to let listeners know, the reason why I really, really wanted to do this episode was because I am scared shitless of climate change. It keeps me up at night. There's many a war in my house over the recycling bins and you know, just trying to live as sustainably as we know as much how to, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
And I was searching for a guest for ages who would be able to talk like real talk, you know, the truth really behind how we do it as individuals. Because I think when you think about climate change and sustainability, we all just think like big corporate companies need to do what they got to do, but there are small things that we can do. And also about your career and how you ended up here, because how does one end up, you know, like from you worked in Image magazine and now you're like, you've got the Futures podcast, you've got so much going on. So I just thought you were the perfect guest for this. So really thank you for joining me. So just if there's anyone who doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your career, and how you got into sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like for anyone listening, that is one of the good things about, I guess, where I come from, my background into sustainability, because that is not where I started. It couldn't have been further from it. Like you mentioned, I started working in magazines and I really wanted to be a fashion journalist and a fashion stylist. And so I was really lucky. I got an internship at Image magazine and slowly worked my way up the ranks and had honestly one of the most amazing times. Like I was there for almost 5 years and it was everything you could imagine working in a fashion magazine would be, because at the time magazines
Devil Wears Prada.
Oh yeah, all the vibes.
I love it.
The good and bad
sides.
Watched
it the other night.
Isn't it still so great? I love it. So at the time magazines were still really important and they had a lot of weight. So it was a lot of obviously writing and styling, but then there was these great press trips. There was like all these free beauty products, fashion discounts. Like it was a really full on experience and it was wonderful and so creative. As a creative person, I had so many creative outlets within that job and I absolutely loved it. And I did it for 5 years and then I decided I wanted to go freelance. So I actually moved to New York for a little bit and styled there, and then came back to Ireland and was styling and for different big companies and for individual clients and doing shoots and then doing a lot of writing. And I don't know where it happened, but somewhere along the road around maybe 2018, I was just doing a little bit of digging actually about some beauty products, and I had heard someone saying that, like, you know, sometimes, you know, there's stuff in them that isn't vegan. A lot of stuff can be tested on animals. And I had been a vegetarian for 10 years, and while I really enjoyed it, I just found it wasn't a lifestyle that suited me. I actually really crave red meat. And so I kind of leaned away from that. But I was still really conscious of like animal testing and trying to make sure that a lot of the everyday products I use would be vegan. And I started to do a bit of digging and I realized that pretty much everything in my beauty routine was tested on animals. And it was like a real kind of a shock, because I kind of presumed these really big beauty brands that are really respected, like I couldn't believe that they would be testing on animals and that they'd have animal byproducts. So I started to do a bit of research and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And I started to slowly swap my beauty products. So when I ran out of something, I would like swap for like a vegan alternative. And I really enjoyed that process and I found it really informative, and I really started to educate myself. And kind of through that process, I started to pull the thread, pardon the pun, on fashion. And I mean, look, everyone kind of knows, you know, if you're buying really cheap stuff, you're probably going to guess that it hasn't probably been made in the best ways. You don't really know who made it. And there had been a lot of controversy around that time with different fast fashion producers of like, you know, unfair working conditions. There had been that horrific incident in Bangladesh where a factory had collapsed and a lot of workers had been killed. So I had that in the back of my mind. But to be perfectly transparent and honest, I was having such a great time in my career and loving fashion so much. I kind of chose to not look into it and to kind of just not think about it.
Isn't that what we're all doing? Like in general though,
Isn't
that what we're all doing? Like we're all avoiding, like you're talking about where it's made, like we all know. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's never stopped me in my tracks.
No, and it doesn't.
Pick it up. Yeah.
And there's loads of reasons why it doesn't. Obviously, we're so removed, first of all. Second of all, there's like a financial barrier for a lot of people where like what they can afford is what they can afford. And so it's not even really an option. You just kind of have to buy what you need to buy. But as someone who'd been working in the industry for so long, once I went down this road and I started to do a bit of research, I really had a moment where I was like, wow, what am I doing? I remember one day I just opened my closet and like it was packed, rammed with things I'd never worn. I'd worn once. Like, I was just like, how can I have this many pairs of shoes? It actually really was like a wake up call. And it's not like it happened one day. I think it was just a gradual kind of learning and understanding. And I was like, I can't keep going like this. I need to stop and think about why I'm doing this. You know, what is the purpose of it? And I also kind of had a talk with myself. I was like, why am I feeling the need to constantly have new, buy? If I'm supposed to be this creative fashion stylist who loves the industry, why do I need constant new clothes to be creative? Surely I should be able to, you know, scale it back and really make use of what I have. So this whole kind of mindset started to change with me.
Okay.
And once I started to do a bit of research, I really got passionate about it and realised that there was actually, you know, a whole world I didn't understand and that I really needed to learn more. And that's why I decided to start the podcast, because I felt so uneducated. I didn't want to come out and pretend like I knew what I was talking about. So I was like, what I'll do is I'll talk to people who are experts, who have gone down this road before me, get their advice, talk to them about what's worked for them. And maybe through that, I'll start to kind of learn and know where to look for more information. Because you know yourself, once you start to look for information, you're like, oh God, there's so much.
Yeah, you're
here.
overwhelmed.
Totally.
It's kind of, it reminds me, like you coming on here today kind of reminds me, just as you're talking, is like when the Black Lives Matters time came around, and a lot of people, like black women, were coming on being like, I just want you to educate yourself. I just want, like, if you're, for example, in the makeup world, I just want you to educate yourself on black skin. That's all I'm at. That makes us equal. That's, you know, that's what I'm asking for. And this kind of reminds me of that, is like, it's really an education part that's missing for just your everyday people, like just being naive and not knowing, and then also not knowing where to get the information from. And that's really why I wanted you to come on, because and as a disclaimer, I know nothing about this. It terrifies me, but I know nothing about it, and I want to know about it, because I'm the same. I'm like, I don't know at what point it was, but I was like, oh, I need to do better personally, because if it's bothering me that much, I hate people who sit on the fence. I hate fence sitters. Like, I literally hate fence sitters. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like my ethos is like, don't be a fence sitter. Like, and I felt like I'm being that by doing nothing and not educating myself. So yeah, I can completely understand your story, is to kind of just waking up and slowly being like, something has to give here. And especially when you're in the industry, it makes perfect sense.
100%. And like, that's the thing I would say to people. Like, I would never advocate to change your whole life and wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I need to scrap everything I'm doing and start fresh and throw everything out and live sustainably. Like, that's completely unattainable and unnecessary. Honestly, just learning will do so much, because once you have the education and the knowledge, then you can decide what you want to spend your money on, who you want to spend your money with, how you spend your time. It really starts with education. And it is really scary to start looking into things, because obviously people sometimes don't want to know, and I totally get that. But even small snippets of education can honestly change your whole outlook. And that's really what we need, because at the end of the day, we're all only individuals. But if more and more of us are educated and aware, that's actually what's going to drive big change, real change.
Yeah. And then I think the more people who are living like that, then it puts more pressure on the bigger companies, because more people are standing up for it then. And it has this massive knock-on effect. So when you think that, these are only small changes, like, sure, what fucking difference am I going to make? It's actually really not that at all.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, I do believe that.
It is. And the bigger companies who I still work with, like, and who I still talk to, every single one of them will say, we're doing this and it's come from the consumers. It's not that they've decided themselves they need to do it. Consumers are like, why is this being made here? What's this made of? Can you trace this? That's why they're doing it. So it does really matter. Our choices do matter. If you feel like you're just a small person and it's not making a difference, I guarantee you, the big companies, they know where you spend your money and they know what you're thinking about. And that's honestly what drives them to change.
Yeah, definitely. And you're going to study now a master's in sustainability.
Sorry, can I just preface this by saying I dropped out of college. I was not an academic person. So when I decided that I needed, well, I suppose I reached a certain point and I changed like my whole career. So I stepped away from fashion styling and I moved into sustainability journalism. And I had been a journalist, so it was a natural progression for me to like write about sustainable fashion and talk about sustainable fashion practices and really eco-friendly materials and how consumers could make small changes every day. Because I am that consumer and I want to know how I can make small changes. So that was a natural progression. But then I felt like, you know, I probably need a deeper knowledge because it is such a really new way of thinking about things, and there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, like the job didn't really exist like 30, 40 years ago, and
no way.
If someone was doing it, they were probably strange.
Very strange.
Like, you know, to all of us, like they probably were. I'm not calling you strange, you know, Jo, but, you know, it didn't exist.
It's so true. And I love that. Like, I feel like even still when I tell people what I do, they expect me to be in like a burlap sack, like, you know, drinking with like a paper straw. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. So I felt like the masters, I saw it and COVID happened and I was like, I have a bit of time now and it would be really good to just get a deeper knowledge. And it's been so challenging. Like I said, I'm not an academic person, but it's been such an eye-opener. And again, it just gives a different kind of depth to what I'm trying to communicate to people. I still want to like talk to people like this, have real conversations, meet people where they are, but having that extra bit of education, it just supports me and helps me look to the future and decide what to do next.
Yeah, definitely. And we probably need, in Ireland specifically, more people like you in fashion.
Absolutely.
Definitely in fashion. Like we've all the farmers, we've lots of people working on all that. Like, honestly, that'll tell you how uneducated I am in this. I'm like, all the farmers, all them people with the cows. No, but there's like, I've listened to, like, even on the Blind Boys podcast, listened to loads of, you know, people like who are doctors in it or whatever you call them in it, you know, but I think it's really important because fashion, the percentage that it makes up for CO2 emissions is there's no words for the level that fashion has on climate change. Like, it's just insane. And yet it's all like, when you meet your friends, when you go anywhere, it is nearly the essence, especially in Ireland. It's a really cultural thing, you know, like we're really into our clothes. So it's so important to have more people like you know, getting like deeper education on it so that you can therefore be at the forefront of it. So good for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Look, fashion is the second biggest polluter in the world. And like, I think sometimes when we talk about carbon emissions and stuff, like sometimes even I leave the room a little bit because carbon emissions is this invisible thing. No one really knows what it means, right? No. Yeah, but if you think about, like, what I try to think about it with fashion is like, when you think of pollution, you're thinking of water quality. Like, in 50 years' time, we want to be able to go and have a swim in Borough Beach.
Yeah.
To think that we mightn't be able to do that is really scary. And that's real to me.
Yeah.
Air pollution. Are we going to have to wear masks all of the time because the air is so polluted? That's really scary. You know, child labour, to me, that's something that is so important. So I think sometimes the carbon thing kind of goes over people's heads. But if you actually think about, like, if you can change your purchasing habits and know that you're, you know, alleviating a little bit of water that's going to be polluted, or you're helping improve air quality, or you're not going to send something to a landfill, I think that's something people can really get on board with.
Yeah,
and like people in Ireland are amazing. We're one of the highest recyclers in the world. We're amazing for things like that. So we just need to bring that mindset to fashion. And like, as someone who loves fashion, we still need to be able to be creative. Like you said, culturally, it's how we express ourselves. We meet up for brunch or coffee. We want to get dressed up. There are still amazing ways to do that. But we just really need to look at how much we're consuming and whether we're really making use of the things we buy, because everything we wear has an impact. It's come from natural materials. It's been made by someone. It's been shipped halfway across the world. If you're only going to wear that once and then it's going to go into the bin, that is a real problem. If you're going to buy something and wear it 30 times and love it and share it with a friend or rent something or resell it on Depop, that's fantastic. That they're the small changes.
Yeah,
that
and
are
there
going to make a
are
difference.
ways.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're also like laziness just comes into it, and I'm speaking from pure experience. Like, but see the word landfill, that word scares the living shite out of me. I hate that word. To think that there are like hills of crap. Like I'm like, what?
I know.
So I also think as well, it's about making it, and to get on to kind of the next question I want to ask you is about shopping and where and where we start, but is making it trendy. Like I love like what the likes of, we'll just mention Caroline, like what Caroline Foran is doing, or the fact that, what was it, not Image Awards, what was the last awards you guys went
The
to?
VIP Awards.
The VIP Awards.
Yeah, she was nominated.
But there was a sustainability category. Yes. VIP and Stellar or whoever runs that, you know, yes to that. Make a category, because now, if you didn't know, now you know that there's people out there doing it and you're following them, and it's about making it trendy. Like everyone's talking about, you know, like just like having really cool like white and black t-shirts that you have for 7 million years. And now I'm like, no, I want them now. That's how my brain works. And I'm just being honest, because that's become real trendy. You have influencers like yourself, Caroline, Jodie Wood, loads of those people talking about like all your basics, but basics that will last you for years if you look after them. So I'm like, oh, well, if they all have them, I want them. Do you know,
that's how it works. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
And that's why Caroline's experiment is so brilliant. And I talked to her a lot about it before she started. She was terrified. I'm sure she'll share that. Like, she was really scared because she's someone who like had lots of fashion apps. She was subscribed to a lot of different fashion newsletters. A shopper. She loves to shop.
Yeah,
and she's no qualms about it. She loves shopping.
Yeah, I love shopping. Yeah, I'm there with her. Yeah.
Yeah. So for her to say, I'm only going to buy one item of clothing per month.
When she first brought it out, I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, no, I was thinking of my wardrobe, but you see, she's got a good wardrobe. I am like at the beginning of that. I'm being really particular now for autumn winter. Really particular.
I love that.
Yeah, no, I really am. I really am.
Like, it is a big transition, and like she'll say, like, it's still really challenging for her because we're literally assaulted. Like, if you go onto social media, which we all do, it's an assault in the senses. Like, we've got ads, you've got gorgeous outfits, like, you know, influencers are a big part of their, you know, money making is through these brands. So you're constantly being pushed with all these gorgeous things. Of course, you're going to want to buy them. So for her to do that and really share her struggles and her triumphs with it. But what it really has done is, she said, first of all, for her mental health, she cannot get, and Caroline is obviously a mental health advocate.
Yeah.
She can't get over like just unsubscribing from a lot of the newsletters, detangling herself, because sometimes it's pressure to buy as well. It's like, I have to have the new thing.
It fully is pressure. And it's also like, if you follow an influencer and they're kind of selling you their lifestyle, you assume that if you buy that blazer, like, you're going to transport yourself into this magnificent lifestyle. Like, I've done it. Like, I'm like, she looks great. I feel like shit. If I buy that, I'm going to feel great. Yeah. Like, you know, like, but I mean, already in my house, we are no longer, and I'll say it, and you just can all root through my wardrobe, I will not buy from Pretty Little Things, Boohoo, Shein, Misguided's gone, whatever, no, don't do it. I'm not doing it.
I love that you brought that up. If that's the only thing that people stop doing, the difference that it would make in the world. Yeah. Shein especially, like, guys, they're creating over 6,000 new designs every day. It's like
6,000 a day?
A day.
How?
They've got their team there. They're producing it all in-house. If you think of all those items, like, we do not have enough.
There's not enough people.
So Shein, if you actually said, I'm going to unsubscribe from Shein, Boohoo, I'm just going to unsubscribe from those ones, the difference that it would make to the planet.
Yeah, because I won't. That's it. And Scott said the other day to me, he was like, we're going on holidays in a few weeks, and he was like, well, I just fly on to Boohoo and get a few bits. And I said, I'm telling you now, you go on to Boohoo and buy a few things, you can move out.
Poor Scott, you can move out. In this.
You can literally move out. Like, I was like, no, I feel really strongly about those things. I also follow Anne-Marie Tomchak. Tom, am I saying her?
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Wonderful. And like what she did kind of with Share Joy, which we collaborated on an episode, The Beauty of Truth, with, and you know, everything that she's doing in terms of all her written pieces, I'm just like, oh, her pieces on like Shein and on all those are terrifying.
It's
terrifying.
crazy.
So I'm like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, and she again is a great person to talk to and listen to, because she worked at Vogue, so she's not coming from this lofty, holier than thou place.
Like, I live in a tree and we all eat leaves type of thing.
Exactly.
Sometimes I think that's what people envision.
I know, and that you can't, like, I can't relate to that. You need someone who's real. She's been in that world, so when she talks to you, you know she's done her research and you know where she's coming from.
Yeah.
She's doing such amazing work. She's awesome.
Yeah, I'll share all these people we're talking about and a couple of their pieces on the Instagram page. But shopping. Right, let's talk, like, how much is it affecting the climate? So we've touched a little bit on it already, but like, big scale talking here. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing wrong? Where do we start? Like, it's so big. I don't actually even have the specific question for you, because I just literally wrote in my notes shopping, because I'm a shopper. I love, don't get me wrong, there's nothing better when you come home from working all day and the ASOS or Amazon or whoever, that I know my postman, I love him when I see him, has dropped something in my green bin, you know, and left me my little note. It releases that, like, oh, deadly feeling for all of 10 seconds, and then you go and you have to clean your house and cook your dinner and you've moved on. But I do love shopping. So where do I start? What effects am I having? Where do I shop? Or where do I find the people I should shop with?
I know, and it's such a big topic, and it's so hard because everyone's habits and approach is so different. But first of all, on the hit thing, I mean, we literally, our brains are wired to get a dopamine hit when we buy something, when we get something new. It gives us a little lift.
It's actually mad.
It's mad, but like in the same way that, like, I had my coffee coming out here and I was like, woo, buzzing. Like, it's the same hit that you get.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most important things really is to just, like, if you're ready to change and you want to change, just look at your habits. Like, don't change anything for a couple of weeks and just notice, like, when are you shopping? Are you shopping because you're feeling down? Like you said, if you feel like shit, are you going straight on to buy something new? Are you shopping because you're bored? Like, just notice your habits and figure out, like, what are the times that you really need to shop? Are you shopping because you genuinely need something and you're excited, or you've worked really hard and you're treating yourself to something? Or are you doing it to fill a gap? Because just monitoring your behavior will tell you a lot. And that's what I found. Like, I was shopping, like, because I was going out and I wanted a brand new outfit and I wanted to feel great. So just notice what your habits are and start looking as well about, like you said, where are you shopping? So if you're shopping on places like Shein, Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, first of all, what I'll say is you're spending, even though it mightn't seem like a lot, tot up what you've spent with them over the last year, right? You're spending a lot of money with them. Those clothes are not, I used to shop from there before I kind of decided to change. Those clothes are not going to last, okay? They're made with the cheapest materials. They are made to literally disintegrate so that you'll have to buy more. So you're spending money on stuff that is literally going into the bin. We're at a time where all of us are watching our money. It's so important that you work so hard for your money. You need to see where it goes. Literally throwing it away on fast fashion is one of the most wasteful things you can do. Like, I'm not in a position where I can waste money like that. And that's what I say to people.
Me neither, no.
Like, you might think something's gorgeous, like, see how it looks in 6 months. So just notice where you're shopping with places. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I would really say, like, just see if you can buy a little bit less, or think twice about if you're going to buy something. If you're like, oh my God, I need something for the weekend, I just need something cheap and cheerful. Look, a lot of people are still going to have to do that. But maybe next month you'll be like, okay, I've got like a wedding at the end of September. I need a new outfit. Maybe instead of buying something brand new, you can rent it. You could rent something that you could never afford.
I want to rent something.
Oh, listen.
I really, really want to rent something. I want to be someone invite me somewhere so I can rent something. I think that is deadly.
And what I love about
fun.
It is. And what I love about renting is that, like, I can rent stuff that I could never afford to buy.
Yeah.
Right? The designer dresses that I adore, that I couldn't justify, you can rent them and wear them for a day. It's such a buzz. It's such a kick. Myself and Caroline, we're lucky we live near each other. We borrow so much stuff from each other. So, like, start to look at ways that you can save money that way. And, like, instead of, like, when you get the urge and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this thing, just put the money, like, into a Revolut vault or something. And after a month of, like, borrowing or renting, say how much you have and buy something really nice for yourself.
Oh, that's really good.
Like, I've started, since I made that change, to, like, when I get the urge, I'm like, no, I'm going to put that 40 quid into this vault. And then I've bought myself things that I never could have justified before, that I absolutely love. I was in Copenhagen recently and I went to
you looked fab.
I had a brilliant time.
Yeah, it looked fab.
But like, they have the most amazing resale stores. So like, really nice designer things that have been resold. And I bought myself a 2014 Givenchy t-shirt that I can remember at the time. I was like, I want this so much, but it was like 600 euro. I was like, I couldn't possibly. But I got it for 110 euro. I was like, that is the price of a couple of hauls on one of those stores. I absolutely adore it. I'm going to wear it forever. You have to have a payoff. I don't think anyone can go cold turkey. So you need to be able to say to yourself, if I'm going to change this, what's my reward going to be? Like, what am I going to give myself? Am I going to have a weekend away? Am I going to buy that one designer piece that I would love but I could never justify? Am I going to get myself a really nice piece of jewellery? Like, you have to kind of give yourself that goal. It's like I don't want to say addiction, but we are in a shopping addiction.
Oh, no, we are.
Yeah.
We are. I would absolutely agree with that statement.
Yeah.
No, we are, yeah.
And when it comes to the fashion things, I think the ones that you mentioned are the ones to kind of get rid of first, because they are so bad. They treat their workers so poorly. They are polluting the areas that they work in. They're just a no-go. Shop a little bit closer to home. Like, go into physical stores. It's really, really easy now to buy. If you want to go like really down a rabbit hole, you can go on to like even sites like Zalando, and you can literally hit a button and they'll filter everything by sustainability. So you don't even need to, so if you want to, like, if you're like, okay, it's winter's coming, I want a really nice pair of like black knee-high boots, go onto a site like Zalando, put in your size or colour, and there's a button. You literally hit sustainability and they'll filter in everything you'll see will either be like low water use, fair paying conditions. They'll do all the work for you.
No
so that makes it
way.
really easy. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant.
So things like that.
Yeah.
And then thankfully, now that the tide is turning a little bit, a lot of really big retailers like that are doing the work for you. So like people always give me shit for talking about Primark, but let's be real.
I actually wanted to ask you about that,
Yeah.
because when I went onto your podcast, and it's about sustainability and it's about fashion, and then I was like, you're sponsored by Primark. I was like, I need to listen to this now, because now I need to understand how that the two meet.
Yeah.
But explain, because it's really interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's something that people like that are like, questioning and wondering about. But I'll tell you the backstory. So I used to work with pennies all the time when I was working in fashion and styling and everything. And, I'm an amazing worldwide Irish company, doing their thing. Obviously, when I moved into this, I stopped working with them because in the past, Primark have come under so much scrutiny for the working conditions, for the kind of fast fashion vibe. And about a year and a half ago, I met with Lynn Walker, who's their head of sustainability. So they basically realised that the way that they were
operating... That's on your podcast. Yeah. I everyone needs to go and listen to that episode. I'll also link that episode because that's brilliant.
Yeah, she is basically heading up an entire team within the company. They've basically created this 10-year plan of how they're going to change their supply chains, move towards organic cotton farming, support local workers. They've got a whole plan, and I would encourage everyone to go and read it. But for me, when I think about what we're talking about, right, which is the everyday person, Irish people are never going to stop buying in pennies.
No, never.
It's an institution, right?
The world could actually be falling down around us. We could be flooded and in flames at the same time, and somehow we will make it to pennies.
I mean, look, post-COVID, that pennies queue was insane, right?
Insane.
That's Irish people. And there's a couple of reasons for that.
And that was just for that hit. That was just for that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Like, that's all that was for. That was the buzz of getting in the queue for pennies, going in and spending fucking 300 quid on you don't even know
whatever you needed.
Yeah.
So there's a few reasons why I've come back around to them. And the first thing is, like, people are always going to shop there. Would we prefer people to shop there and have stuff that's going to pollute the world and isn't doing good for the people who make it? Or would you prefer to be able to shop there and have what's in there be positive and impacting people positively? Obviously the latter. So with this 10-year plan, they're trying to improve their supply chains, their working conditions, everything. The second thing I would say is that, a lot of people, pennies is their price point. Okay, they don't have...
Yeah, they can afford it.
They can afford it. It's what they can afford. If you've got a family, that's where you're going to go shop. So for a lot of people, they may not realise, when they pick up a t-shirt, but now they might be picking up a t-shirt for their kids and it's organic cotton and it's been fairly traded, which is amazing. They don't even need to know that, but that's what's happening, which is great. The third thing is that for the size of the business that Primark is, it has a huge impact on other fashion companies.
Yes, so
within the industry.
They do one thing, everyone else starts to kind of fall in line a little bit.
100%. And even if you come down to the factories, a lot of these fashion companies source from the same factory. So if one company says, okay, we have to pay everyone in this factory a living wage, we need to make sure that this factory is checked every 6 months by a third party, everyone has to get on board with that. So by one company standing up and making these changes, even if other companies don't want to, they're going to have to get on board. So the power when somebody, it's like anything. It's like you and your family deciding that you're going to recycle. People fall in line. So it's really important that when a company who historically has not had a good track record and who's come under a lot of fire decides to make change, we encourage the change. I know there's a lot of controversy about greenwashing, but I probably have a bit of a controversial stance on it.
What is greenwashing?
So greenwashing is when a big company says that they're doing something good for the planet or they're trying to be more sustainable and they're not. They're using it as kind of like a marketing spin, or some people think it's not enough. So a lot of people with Primark would say, okay, they're starting now, but this is ridiculous. Like, why haven't they been doing this for years? But like, I'm like, guys, let's be realistic. People are only realising now and people are only having to change now. I would much rather encourage them to keep doing change and say, it's great that you're doing this change. What else can you do? Where are you at with your goals? Are you meeting them? Are you excelling them? Have you fallen behind? Like, start to make the change and let's work with you on it. Instead of companies starting like Shein who are like, we don't give a shit. People are going to shop with us. We don't care. And we're just going to continue doing this.
And is that what they're saying?
100%. 100%.
Whoa.
They're like, there's
like,
no.
What a big statement. And we all sit there and go, right, Grant.
I know, but like, there's no legislation. If you think of any other industry, there's so much legislation around it. Like, you can't go and, pick up a bottle of Coke or a bar of chocolate. It's been checked. Is it safe to go into your body? Like, is it going to have a bad effect on you? Where have the ingredients come from? There is literally no legislation in the fashion industry to decide what natural resources they've extracted, what they've polluted, who they've affected. So if somebody starts to make a positive change, I believe it's really important that we encourage it, we support it. It sends a message to
100%.
Everyone that this is what we need.
Yeah, because I've nearly switched without realising I've done it. So I would have been a big Zara shopper. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie because we're on the Beauty of Truth podcast. I will struggle to step away from Zara because it's just very my style, right? Haven't actually bought Zara since, I don't even remember. I actually haven't shopped really, to be honest. But I'm finding when I go online and I go onto Zara, I switch to H&M because I'm a H&M kind of talk more about, like, I bought all Avery's, whereas I would have bought a big shop for Avery going back to school, like, or play school on Zara. I bought it loads from H&M and all her tops were like 25% organic or recyclable materials, and they've got a lot of things on their website that, as someone who doesn't know what I'm meant to be looking for, to me, I was like, they seem to be doing better.
Yeah.
Zara are just really not great. It's just all negative. So I was like, so I've kind of switched. I don't know if that's even like this is the thing, right? With all of these brands, you could go down a rabbit hole and start nitpicking and everything. But what your experience has really spoken to me about is that the brands who stay silent on this are going to be left behind, because people are becoming more aware and everyone does want to do something, even if it's just, when they're buying something, being like, oh, if it's a little bit recycled, that actually might be a little bit better, I'll go for that. So the brands who are quiet are going to be left behind, which is brilliant. And even if you're not, the sustainable, like, minded person and your whole life is built around it, everyone is starting to make little changes, even teeny tiny ones, and it does make such a difference. And it changes, and what it really does is it sends the signals to brands that, like, this is where consumer power is going. At the end of the day, they want to make money. So if they're going to make money from recycled materials and organic, that's what they're going to put their supply chain into. That's just the reality of it. Yeah, definitely. And then I was thinking about this then in terms of shopping for kids. That's a whole nearly other level, really, isn't it? Because, like, Avery, I mean, like, I buy her, like, kind of I'll buy a shop for her, and then legs 11, she's out of it already. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's really hard. Now, we would always, any clothes that I don't use for Avery, actually, I give to all my friends. So we were really, really good like that. I've, like, 2 nieces, one younger than Avery, so that she can take some of her bits. My friend Jess takes a few bits. My friend Carlan, like, everybody takes a few bits of Avery's bits because she's too bigger for her age. So anyone who actually is her age can take the hand-me-downs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But kids' clothes get wrecked.
Wrecked.
So see the play school, like I'm like, I can't hand them down to anybody. So don't get me wrong, we pack them up and we go down to the recycling bins and we put them in. But you still hear that some of that still ends up in landfill.
I know.
So I'm like, how do we, like, you try do good, and I can see then why some people go, oh, fuck it then.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's out of my power. Like, I can't go and lift that bin and make sure it goes. You know what I mean?
100%.
For children, is there any advice that you give for children's clothes?
I'm not a parent, so I'd be very slow to comment. But from my friends' experiences and in your experience, that is the situation. Obviously, kids grow out of clothes so quickly. But I think what you're saying is right. If you can buy something that's recycled or organic and you can afford that, amazing. If it's in good nick, pass it on to a friend. If you don't have friends who have kids, donate it. There's tons of charities, especially at the moment. There are so many charities, even St. Vincent de Paul, who really need kids' clothes.
Yeah, we would do that too. Yeah,
and you can chat to them and they'll tell you. Like, obviously, you don't want to be offloading stuff that they're not going to use. After that, obviously, recycling is the next step. But like, unfortunately, that is where a large part of the fashion industry falls down, is that we don't really have good recycling processes in place, and that's something that is actually gathering a lot of speed at the moment. There's lots of different companies starting, but like, you're right, we don't actually know a lot of the time what happens. So it just means that when you're buying, try and be as conscious as possible, make the clothes last as long as possible. And I mean, like, if I get a hole in a t-shirt and I can't repair it, I like tear it up and use it for cleaning. Like, there's other things.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. Around the house, if it's a cotton t-shirt, that's like the best thing you can clean with. And I'm a clean freak, so I can say it. Yeah.
No, love that.
Yeah, you go out and buying loads of cloths and stuff, like, literally. And if it's like organic cotton, you can use it as like a makeup remover, which I love doing as well. So you can
oh my God.
Yeah. So there's other ways you can get rid of stuff. But I do think when it comes to the kids thing and when it comes to recycling, it's a really big issue. And actually at Copenhagen, I was at a fascinating talk about recycling textiles and how it's so complicated, because most of the clothes we wear aren't just one material. Like, it's a mix.
Yeah.
It's a nylon,
so
polyester. So they can't separate those materials. So even by you buying something that's 100% cotton or 100% polyester even, it's easier to
recycle. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But look,
this is why I needed to be educated on all this.
I know. It's so complex. But I think really just being conscious, passing things on as much as you can, that's kind of all we can do. In the next few years, I think we're going to see loads of really good initiatives where they're like, I mean, coming back to Primark, and I think H&M, you can bring in your old disused clothes and they'll recycle them. So there's a lot of these things happening where, like, it's not just even the local council bill, like, you're bringing them back to fashion brands who are probably going to put them back into their supply chain, which is amazing.
Yeah, and do you know what I feel like we need then from a cultural, social level? See, with the recycling bins, right, in the likes of Pennies and H&M, I've never seen anyone at them. So I'd love to see, like, some influencers do some of the reels of them going in and recycling and making it cool. I think some people would be mortified walking in with their black sack through Pennies to put their clothes in.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of this from a real, like, that's why I'm trying to be so real about this. Because, like, I'm like, am I going to walk through Pavilions from the car park with a black sack in my hand of all my old clothes and put them in the bin of Pennies? Now, I would, because I wouldn't give a shite.
Yeah.
But would my friends would be, fuck off, Robin, I'm not doing that.
100%.
Like,
so 100%. Some of my friends would be like that too, 100%.
Of course they would. Like, do you know what I mean? Dragging your black sacks, like, right through Pavilions to get to Pennies. Like, you know, so I think it would be really cool to see people who are quote unquote cool.
Yeah.
It's cool leaving a cool word
no,
anymore.
it is.
Who knows?
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't agree
see
more.
Influencers actually do that. So then that younger generation are like, oh, well, you know, who's big. I don't know, in makeup, Adrian Kate, I saw her how to recycle all her old makeup. Or, you know, Cash Beauty or someone like that. And then in terms of clothes, you know, whoever it might be, do that, because then they're making it a social thing that it's okay to do when I'm doing it, because we tend to be a bit of sheep sometimes and follow. So
100%.
I'd love to see that happen.
So would I, and I really I think there are so many amazing content creators in Ireland that have huge followings, and I think unfortunately for them, sometimes some of them might want to do something, you know, in sustainability, but I think a lot of people are afraid because they're like, am I going to get backlash from people because I'm not like a sustainable person and now I'm doing this one thing? And I'm like, no, we need to literally encourage any good practice.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it filters down. And some people don't know that there's recycling bins. They don't know how to recycle makeup. If somebody that they follow and love to follow does it, they'll be able to apply it. So I agree completely. And I think brands need to step up and be a little bit braver too, because I think brands are afraid to like sponsor content around that in case they get backlash. And it's like, guys, we just need to get on this. We don't have time. We just need to start.
I think the problem with people is when you say that you're sustainable, or when you say you are one thing, your whole world, kind of like that cancel culture type of vibe, where if that's not your everything, well then you're bullshitting us.
Yeah.
You're lying to us. Nah, fuck off you now. I'm not going to buy what you tell me because you said you were sustainable, but now you're in a Zara jacket. And 2 weeks ago you were showing me how to recycle in pennies. But you have to be allowed, people have to be allowed to do it in parts. Like, you don't have to, that's why I suppose I resonate with like yourself and Caroline when it comes to this, and I find you as a resource for this thing, because you're not like, you know, you're not telling me I need to be a hippie out in the woods, like, and you know, live amongst the animals. Like, do you know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing. I'm not like, you can buy the blazer from Zara. If it's a blazer that you love, you feel like you're going to wear it all winter, that's a fantastic purchase. Yeah. That is a well thought out, considered purchase, and something you're going to love and enjoy. Like, that is the best approach you can take. Nobody can be, I'm not perfect. I have loads of things that I still want to change and want to work on. There's no way in this world to be quote unquote sustainable. It's just impossible. We're human beings. We have to consume food. We have to consume clothes. We have to consume everything we do. What are the small things that can make a difference? And that's the thing. I completely agree. I feel like we shouldn't have to be like pinholed into like, I'm a sustainable influencer. No, you're someone who creates content, and there's things that you do in your life that are actually really great and really help society. I wish that the conversation moved to that. I think people are really scared because, as you say, cancel culture is still so prevalent. And if you put a step wrong, people are going to freak out. And like Caroline, I know, found that really hard. Like, you know, she did get a lot of backlash for doing the one thing. And it's like, why are you punishing someone for trying to do something really positive, really challenging? Yeah, and that's going to just make people
because
think.
your whole world isn't that.
But that's crazy.
You know, you're bullshit. Yeah, no, it is
crazy. No one can have their whole world. I can't have my whole world. It's just not possible, you know?
No.
So I think small changes, and we just need to be really encouraging and forgiving of people and just open up the conversation. That would be amazing if we could do that.
Definitely. Like, I have friends, and they're like, they'll walk to their bin and they're like, oh my God, Robin, sorry. And like, take it back out. And they're staring at me like, take it out of that bin. And I'm like, yeah, bitch. You take that back out of that bin. You put that in the right bin.
I love that you're militant about it, though. I love that.
Like, and it's a joke, but they actually know I'm really serious.
Yeah.
But it's like, it is a joke. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just about, again, having the conversation amongst friends, family. These conversations are so, so important. It's why I was really gung-ho on getting the right person for this conversation. And then we've talked about kind of shopping and what we, you know, and what we can do, and I suppose the realities that we struggle with. I've listened to a couple of your episodes on your podcast, and at one point you actually get quite emotional about it. What is it that makes you so emotional?
You know, I was trying to think about this because you mentioned it earlier. I honestly think once I started to go down this rabbit hole, I actually came back to who I really was. And like, that sounds like a really big statement, but I grew up in the countryside. Like, I had a really nice rural childhood. I spent all my time in the country, hiking, walking, swimming in the sea. It was gorgeous, and I was so connected with nature, and I really took it for granted because it was always around me. Like, we didn't grow up with a lot, so we had to really make use of our clothes. Like, getting something new was a really big deal.
Yeah, it was a real treat.
It was a massive, like, it was like your confirmation, your birthday, Christmas. Like, that was kind of it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the reason why I swung so much in the other direction when I got that job and when I moved into fashion, because suddenly everything was so accessible, and I was living in a city, and it was such a different experience. And it was actually when I was in New York, I can just remember craving fresh air and craving the mountains, and I missed it so much. And I didn't stay in New York long. I just couldn't. With the concrete, I was like, I need to go back. I didn't realise how much I'd missed it. And even in Dublin, we're so blessed. The countryside is like within reach. We're so close to it for a city. So once I started to go down this rabbit hole, I honestly feel like I came back to myself, and I was like, why am I filling my life with all the stuff I don't need? why do I not care about where stuff has come from? Like, going through the journey really made me feel more connected with the people who make the clothes. Like, we're all connected in so many different ways. You know, I don't want to use skincare that's been tested on an animal who's had to suffer for me to wear it. It honestly grounded me so much, and I feel like I've such an appreciation and consideration for everything I wear, everything I use on my body. I just have a fuller experience of life. And I know that probably sounds really cheesy, but I get emotional about it because I just think we're so blessed in Ireland. We have the most amazing countryside, the ocean, like it's at our fingertips. And the thoughts of us not realising how every small step we take has an impact on other people. There are people in the world who can't swim in their oceans because they're filled with clothing.
Isn't that mad?
Like in Ghana, they can't get into the ocean because there's literally clothes washing up on their shores. Like, that to me,
that's so hard to comprehend, though.
It is.
It's really hard to visualize that as a reality.
It is. And I just think we're so lucky where we are, and we have such a pristine world, and like, I want to keep it that way. So by doing the small things, I feel like I'm respecting everything that we have at our fingertips. I love being outside in nature, and every time I'm out there, I just try to appreciate it. And honestly, I would say to people, even if you're not going to change anything, just appreciate where we are, appreciate this moment in time, because unfortunately we are at this cusp where there's so much good change happening, and I do think we're going to be able to turn the dial on things. I really do. I do. I have to believe that.
I needed to hear that.
Yeah, I really do.
I lie in bed at night and I'm like, sour fucked.
No, and I don't do that because I honestly believe we are, so much change is happening. And like, if you think of something like back in the 19s, the ozone layer. Like, do you remember the ozone layer? They're like, the ozone layer, we're fucked. Like, we can't close it. It's a huge hole in the sky. Time's running out. Literally, we closed that hole. And people
did we?
We did.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, we did.
For us. I didn't know that. That'll tell you how far removed.
Right?
Yeah.
We closed it.
Oh, right.
The ozone layer was caused by things like this specific gas that comes out of like the back of refrigerators and stuff. Literally, people stopped manufacturing that way. They changed it. There's no hole in the ozone layer, right? So
what?
I'm serious. Look into it.
Okay.
So we did that once. I firmly believe we can do it again. It's going to take a lot of work from the big companies and government and legislation, but like, we have to believe that. And as I said, if you don't change any of your practices, the next time you're out for a walk, the next time you're at the ocean, or that you head away, just appreciate this moment in time, because it is a case of like, will our kids be able to enjoy this? Like, will they be able to go outside?
That makes me emotional. Like, that actually really is making me emotional.
I know.
Because that's what, like, when I think of having Avery, and then think of like, if for whatever reason I wasn't in the world and she was in the world, and it wasn't the world I'm in now, I'm like, that, I know that is such a vast thought, but I'm being honest. Like, it freaks me out to think. I remember being in a friend's house and they were putting glass bottles in the black bin, and I, like, this is years ago as well, like, this was when like
wasn't even a thing.
Nobody was talking about. I was a fucking freak, like, and I was like, to this person's mother, I was like, what are you doing in someone else's house? And she was like, it's not my problem. And I was like, but I'm telling you, in fact, that it will be your grandkids' problem. It will be, like, you putting glass bottles in the black bin will be your grandkids' problem. Yeah, but I won't be here. And I'm like, oh wow. Now, like, I got slagged about it for like the next 10 years. But like,
but it is, I get that argument a lot. I get that from people who are like, well, I actually won't be here.
That's horrible.
And I know.
Like, you don't have children.
No.
Like, and you care.
Yes.
But like, I have Avery, and I'm telling you now, it keeps me awake at night. I'm like, oh my God, when I look at like I said, you know, before we started recording, me and Scott were both lying side by side last night, really romantically, both on our phones, watching separate TikToks, not even watching it together, separately. And Scott turned to me and he went, oh, your TikTok's mad depressing. And I was like, well, your TikTok is stupid and just full of, you know, girls' asses shaking and comedy skits. And he was like, no, but really, like, yours is really, like, I can't watch that. And it was then when he said it to me, and I kind of flicked through, and I was like, it was all climate-based. Floods, wildfires, people talking about climate change. That's all I was absorbing. Now, I know that's also not healthy either, because also TikTok, it's like, you know, fake news left, right and centre.
Yeah. But
like, the floods in Pakistan, the size of the UK, the size of, like, I'm sorry, what? Like, and yeah, like, and that's what gives me that, like, oh my God, like panic.
100%.
Like, and it makes me like, that's why I'm asking you, what is it that makes you emotional? Because for me, it's like, I'm like, the thought of like, imagine losing your home. Like, imagine like those people, there's billions now without their homes.
I know, and it's literally down to climate change, and like
it's terrifying.
Yeah, and even when it comes back to human health, because again, I think sometimes people think, oh, Pakistan, like never been there, never going to go there, whatever.
Yeah, they've war there all the time.
Yeah,
like, that's what
happens
if you were born
there
in the 90s, that's what you assume.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's just what happens in the third world. Like they just have bad weather or whatever. But like it affects human health. Like we know scientists have found plastic particles in human blood. We are ingesting plastic because we're like it affects, like that lady, it does. The second you make a decision, it affects everyone. And that's not to say that anyone needs to get overwhelmed or like fall down a TikTok black hole.
Like, don't, because that's not good. On a side note, don't do what I do.
No, you need to stay positive.
Yeah.
But I really think just changing your mindset and considering and just being a little bit more aware, a little bit more conscious, and just taking personal responsibility when and where you can. And I think the number one thing for me is appreciating the nature that we have in Ireland, because I think once you fall in love with something, you want to look after it. That's just the way it is.
100%.
And in Ireland, if you felt like, you know, your fast fashion isn't affecting Ireland, it is. It's affecting our water, it's affecting our air quality. So if we want to love the place that we live and have it the way it is, it's just very small steps, a change in mindset, and if you can educate yourself a little bit, but I know people don't want to become overwhelmed, but you know, it is affecting everyone, even if you can't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. What have been, I suppose, facts or things that have happened in the world that really, really struck a chord with you? Like, what are the, you know, because obviously you've done mountains and mountains of research. What are the things that you're like, wow, knowing that, I now have to change that?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, but I think, again, it kind of comes down to the personal thing a lot of the time with me. I'm such a chocolate fan. Like, I'm a chocolate addict. I have to have chocolate every single day.
Every evening.
Every evening, right?
Yeah.
That's my
every
thing.
Evening.
And I started to look into a brand called Tony's Chocolonely. They're a Nordic brand. And when I started to read about it, like, most of the chocolate supply chain has child labour woven into it. So I know, and this is going to scare people now, right? But this is the truth.
We need to know it's the truth, yeah.
Most big chocolate brands are sourcing their cocoa beans from different parts of usually South Africa, and child labour is the norm there. So children are working, they're picking the cocoa beans, that's where it's coming from. It is so hard to buy a bar of chocolate that doesn't have child labour involved in it. So to me, that was the moment where I was like, sorry, even the fucking chocolate I'm eating is riddled with disaster. Like, what the hell?
Like, what?
But it's things like that. So like, I love that brand now. And they are basically, what they're doing is kind of like the Primark thing. They work with other big chocolate companies to look at their supply chain, identify where there might be child labour happening, and then basically make sure that the families that are working on those farms are being paid enough so that the kids don't have to work and they can go to school. That is such a positive thing.
Wow, yeah, that's brilliant.
Like, if you felt like when you bought your bar of chocolate, instead of somebody having to work as a child on a farm, they could go to school. That to me is the most powerful thing a consumer can do.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah,
and it's literally
huge.
having your cup of tea in the evening.
Yeah.
So like, it's things like that I feel like are overwhelming issues that sound awful and that like really trigger you and make you feel like, what the hell is wrong with the world? But then that there's actually a solution, something you can do. And it's the same with the fashion thing. Like, when you think of a truckload of fast fashion being dumped into landfill every minute in the world.
Every minute. Yeah, because I read, what did I read? Oh yes. So I read 5 billion tons of waste just from returns.
I'd love to get into the return thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm like, we need to talk about the return thing, because when I read that, I was like, hang on a second. So 5 billion, billion, not million, billion tons of waste in 1 year from returns just in the US.
Okay.
Now, when I think of what I return, I'm like, wow.
I know. And look, the return thing is kind of a new, I literally just wrote about this for the Sunday Times, it's a new phenomenon because look, we lived through a pandemic. The only way we could buy things was online, and then if they didn't suit, we were returning them. But there's also been this cultural shift where
I actually hate shopping online.
So do I.
I hate it.
I hate it.
Love going shopping.
Yeah, I can't do it on. I actually can't do it online. I don't have a good enough imagination.
Well, what
to
happens to me now is I fill baskets up and they live there
forever.
And then I go back on and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I need to see it on.
But then some people love it. It's like their place. They love it. So there was the return issue because of COVID, right? And so many people who would never have bought online started to buy online. There's also a social media phenomenon of this keep or return trend where people will like
keep
have
or
you seen
return.
This? Have you
no,
seen
I
this?
haven't
It's
seen
on
this.
TikTok and like Instagram. So like
you would think me down the rabbit hole.
Just about to say, you think you'd know. Scott probably knows about it. So basically people will buy like, 10 or 11 things, try them on, and then they decide, do they keep it? They let their followers decide, do they keep it or do they return it? Okay. But like that seems really innocent because how you feel about returning something, how all of us feel is we're sending it back to the company. They're going to put it back on stock and somebody else will buy it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, especially when it comes to fast fashion, if you think about how cheap fast fashion is, right? You can probably buy a dress for what, like 14 quid?
Yeah.
Think about how much it's cost that fashion brand to grow the cotton, have it designed, manufactured, shipped to a factory, shipped to your home. You decide you don't like it. It's shipped back to there's no gain for them to put that back. The money that it costs them to unpack that return, put it back on their system, put it back on their website with the right sizing, and then send it back out to them. It's literally not worth their while. They're not going to make any money from that. It is far easier for them to put it into landfill. So with some companies,
so like it just goes straight to landfill.
Not all do.
Nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong. But no, wait a second. Not all companies are doing it. Companies aren't sharing. Obviously they're not sharing.
Okay.
But we know from the figure that came out in the US that most people are doing it. It's not worth their while. The labour cost alone, and we're in like a labour shortage at the moment in the world. They're going to pay you to spend your week opening up boxes, seeing if something's been damaged, seeing if something's been worn, seeing if it's good enough to put. By that stage, especially for fast fashion, it's gone out. No one wants it. It was like a trend 2 weeks ago. You sent this back 6 weeks later, it's going into the bin.
Oh, wow.
So the return thing is a serious issue, especially when it comes to something like fashion. Other industries aren't so bad, like electrics and stuff. Most of the time, those are expensive products. They are going to be resold.
But isn't Apple like under scrutiny because don't they have a policy of, or are they the opposite? They don't want to fix your iPhone, or they don't want to fix your...
Yeah, Apple's an interesting one because they came under so much scrutiny because they were like, people were like, if I buy this phone, there's literally, if something happens, it's very hard to fix it. Even if it's something small, you have to go to a third party. The third party won't guarantee it because it's like, well, Apple don't verify us or whatever.
Yeah.
So they didn't want you fixing things. They wanted you to throw away your phone and buy a new one. And like
as if they haven't enough money.
I know, but now there's actually a really funny article I can share with you. Who's this like high tech guy who loves his like smartphones and his smart devices, and basically Apple have launched this repair kit, right?
Okay.
So they'll ship you out this little repair kit, and the idea is that the basic things that go wrong with the phone, like the microphone breaks, the screen cracks, or whatever, you'll have everything you need to repair it. But like there's this great article from this guy who this is his life's passion and work, and he was like, I would need a PhD to do these repairs.
I was just about to say, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Who's going to sit down and do it? It's ridiculous. So yeah, they are under scrutiny, but they're in trouble because smartphones are made up of all these natural precious minerals. So there's all these things in your smartphone that make it work, and we're literally running out of them. So you will see people like Apple now ask you to send back your phone and they'll pay you for it because they literally don't have the components and they need to keep making them. And there's loads of companies.
How crazy.
Isn't that mad?
Nobody saw that coming.
We're literally running out of the things that we need to make smartphones and smart devices. So you'll see like Vodafone have just launched a new thing where if you bring back old, like even 10-year-old smartphones that have been sitting, like I have one sitting in my drawer for years.
Loads. I can have them all,
they'll
because
give you money.
I never knew how to recycle them. And my mum
there
was
hasn't been
always
a way.
like, yeah, keep them. You're not just throwing that in the bin.
Yeah.
So we have like I have Nokia like Snake, like whatever that phone was, 3210 or something. Like I have them at home.
Now you're going to start getting money for them because
brilliant.
which is brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
great.
Which is
Happy
great.
days.
So yeah, so the return thing is a major issue. And again, there are situations where you can't help buying stuff and returning it, especially if you're buying online. But again, it's just something for people to be conscious about, especially if you're buying from the cheap people. Guys, they are not going to bother putting that back online. It's out of date. It's not worth their time. Into the landfill, off it goes. And they don't even get penalised. That's the thing. There's no legislation.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping them
from
doing it.
They can buy a field and fill it with stuff.
But why is there no legislation? Like, is it that we don't have enough people in government that care enough or are not educated enough? Like, where is the barrier? Because there's people like you, right, who know that if we created a legislation that stopped them from doing that, they would then have to figure out a way of not doing that.
100%.
And the problem is completely solved, and there isn't 5 billion tons of waste in a landfill just in the US alone.
Yeah, 100%.
So what is the connection?
It's exactly what you said.
Whose door do we go knocking on here?
It's exactly what you said. People haven't realised, like, we've kind of been living in ignorant bliss. And that happens with loads of different things that change. Like, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. And then I learned, like, that's just humans. We've now realised how damaging the practice is. Fashion is one of the biggest employers in the world. It supports a lot of jobs. It's a really big money spinner. So it hasn't been in anyone's best interest to change this. Thankfully, the EU, God bless them, are leading now in loads of legislation that's about to come in where they are seriously going to crack down on the practice of these brands. And even though that's only happening in the EU, most big fashion brands are global. So if they have to comply in the EU, they're going to have to they're just going to change everything. So it is coming down the line. And that's what I was saying. That's why there's so many reasons to be positive, because in the next 5-10 years, so much is going to change. And again, like you said, it shouldn't come back to the consumer. Like, if you need to return something, you're trusting that company is going to be responsible with it.
100%.
You're not thinking that company's going to dump it. Like, and as you said, if there was a law that prevented them from doing that, you can be sure they'd find a way to make it work. Like, 100%.
No, 100%. It's like anything. It was like when, I don't know, like when Brexit happened and everybody was scrambling. And I actually just know a good bit about it because both Scott and Darcy work in customs, like dealing with legit. They work for DB Schenker, dealing with like Brexit basically and the whole thing. And like companies just moved to Germany so that they could like it was all like, we survived. Here we are, and packages are being delivered, and customs are being paid, or whatever it is. Like it didn't act. Nobody died in the process, and I'm like, I can't understand. And like, I actually follow on TikTok loads of our government people's TikTok pages, and they talk loads about the farming side of climate change, but then there's that, and I'm like, I'm really far. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not from Cork. Like, I'm from up the road, and I know sweet fuck all about farming. Yeah. Like, I bring Avery to play school in Ballybuckle, and we're like, we're going out the countryside to school, and we see cows, and like that is that's where it starts and that's where it ends. So when they start talking about all that, I'm a bit like over the head. But fashion, I can relate to. Cosmetics, I can relate to. So, but there seems to be nobody in our government who talks about any of this or is doing anything, but obviously it's coming from the EU, so that's even better.
Yeah, and like, look, in Ireland, we're a rural country. Our supporter of our economy is agriculture, and unfortunately agriculture does have a large impact just from the way that it operates. We've got a lot of cattle and stuff, so one of our biggest imprints is through agriculture because it's our biggest component in the industry. So that's why there's so much focus. And also, most TDs are country TDs and their constituents are farmers and work in the farming community, so they want to push that. But like that, it's mostly men in government. And like, I don't know, but like, I haven't seen any really well-dressed TDs. Like, no offence, but like fashion and beauty, none of them are getting their eyebrows done. No, so it's not a priority for them. To me.
Actually, one TD has.
Oh, yeah. Okay, why isn't he pushing the agenda?
A female.
Amazing.
And she's actually really about climate change.
So this is the thing. So like, you're so right. We need people who are on the ground. It's great for stuff to come from the EU, but sometimes when stuff's coming to the EU from Ireland, it's like, oh, Irish people are like, oh, like in government are like, oh God, now we need to get on board to comply. But it would be great if somebody was activated here and pushing it, because I honestly feel like Ireland is a small country. We have a small population. Once we decide we're on something, we are on it. Like, look at the marriage referendum.
Yes.
Once we got on board.
And this has come up a lot in several podcasts, like where like when we do decide we get together, like with COVID, when we were told what we had to do,
100%.
we all did it. You know what I mean? Like we are very, very united in that sense.
Once we get it in our heads that this is a good thing. And like, look at our history. We've always protested. We've always been such activists. So we have this amazing opportunity on our little island to actually make a lot of change and be a great example for other countries. We just need people to start leading the way and really getting people excited about this and feel like we can do something and we can help. And it's not doomsday, because I really hate when people go down the doomsday thing. It's like, guys, if you
like it, Robin, stop talking.
Like your TikTok feed. It's like, if people feel like that, you just give up. You're like, well, what's the point?
Yeah,
I will something and put in the bin. Yeah,
it's too overwhelming.
Yeah, where if you feel like we're at this amazing inflection point and we could actually be the generation to save the world. How exciting and empowering is that? That will motivate you to do something small and be like, I'm helping, and I can tell my grandkids I was part of the generation that actually helped turn things around. It was an amazing moment for the world.
100%. Yeah. I'm here to change the world, Jo. That's it. Starting here on the Beauty of Truth podcast, on the Futurist podcast. No, it is. I completely agree. And this is exactly why I wanted this conversation to happen. Exactly. And in terms of then, so you talked about the kind of, we've mentioned hauls and a little bit of content creators and influencers. From studying sustainability, what harm do you feel it has?
The haul culture?
Just in haul culture, this buy and try and return and all this. And just that content influencer general type of, I suppose, what we kind of absorb all day, every day.
Yeah, like, look, I think it's like it's kind of like a psychology study, really, because like there's a reason why influencer culture is what it is. We love to watch other people, especially in Ireland. We're social creatures. We want to see what other people are doing.
Reality TV.
It is reality TV. Yeah. On social media.
Yeah,
we love
sometimes not real, but it's a version of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we love that. And what I really think is, like, look, a lot of people who are influencers, they do make money from fashion and beauty or whatever. That's their thing, because that's what most of us are interested in our spare time. A lot of people aren't educated. They don't realise that when they're pushing Boohoo or Shein, that they're having that impact, and that people who are following them are then just going to buy it without thinking. So I think it's not so much that influencer culture is damaging. I think it has the potential to do such good, and
I think
they're just
so
not
too.
aware. Like, they're not aware, and they're in their bubble. They're trying to make money.
It's kind of, I suppose, up to the brand also, when you know, whatever. I don't have that connection with a brand, but I imagine that when they are like, this is kind of what the focus is for this season or whatever, that they can be like, actually, we want to just focus on being sustainable, so create your content based on these things or whatever.
100%.
But that there's a guide from them.
Yeah, and like, I do think kind of haul culture does seem to be dying off. Like, the hauls,
definitely not as popular.
Yeah, I definitely think in the last few months people have kind of been like, is there really any need to be buying 40 things in one go? Probably not. So I think that is naturally dying off, and I think there will be like a natural shift. But I would love to see somebody with, you know, a really big following do the challenge that Caroline's done, or decided that they're, you know, going to only work with companies who have a really transparent ESG strategy. Like, to
What's
see
ESG?
ESG is environmental social governance. So it basically is like, this is where we operate, this is the kind of materials we use, this kind of impact, carbon footprint we have. Social then covers like, this is who works for us, this is what they're paid.
Okay.
This is like how we look after them. It's those kind of regulations. Governance then would be things like, you know, this is how diverse our team is. This is how we support pay parity. This is how we make sure we've got a gender balance. So a company who's working on those pillars doesn't mean they have to be perfect, but a company who's willing to be like, this is where we are. We're not perfect, but we're going to try and work on these things. Those are the companies who are really leading the way. But when it comes back to influencers, I think the platform and power they have, sometimes I'd say they don't even realise like the impact.
100%.
Because a lot of my friends would be like, you know, using a palette or wearing something like, oh, I got it because this person shared it and I loved it. I think sometimes influencers don't even realise, like, there's people all over the country, whatever they say they'll do. And it comes back to what we said earlier. If you've got the power to make someone think twice about something, or if you make a change, not only will you impact all the people who follow you, you'll also say to the brands, like, this is the way I'm going, and they'll follow you. And then your peers, the other influencers are like, oh, they did it, it's okay. They have so much power. And I would invite anyone who's nervous about that space to talk to me, because I really think we're at that inflection point where you no longer have to be the expert in sustainability. You can be like, I don't know about this, but I want to try it and I want to learn. I'll bring you guys on a journey with me. Let's learn together. You can ask questions, I'll ask questions, and let's just figure this out. How amazing would that be?
Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant, because I even think of it from a makeup cosmetics point of view. And I actually remember having this conversation on a Zoom during COVID with Anne-Marie Tomchak. She's just so lovely. And we ended up, and I was like I like with cosmetics, like I don't even know where I would begin. Like if you saw, and I'm not going to lie, like every evening when I finish like doing brows all evening or doing makeups all day, the bin.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, mother of God. Oh, I need to go into a dark room, rock back and forth after that. Like, and some people really, they're like, whatever. Like, and then when I think of like, in hairdressers and all the packets, like I can't. I'm like, there has to be, but then I suppose we need someone who works within those industries to trial and test ways around that.
And that's the thing at the moment. It's hard because there is so much trial and error. It's not like you can be like, okay, instead of buying, everything I need in a single packet, I'll buy, bulk by 200 and that saves all the packaging. Sometimes there aren't those options for people at the moment.
Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation with a lady yesterday and she was saying like she's tried to, the only change she wants to make is literally change her little girl's lunchbox and make sure that everything that goes into the lunchbox isn't in a plastic package. It is almost impossible. Yogurts, little bars, like raisins.
Yeah, but see, when she comes home, I'd wash out that yogurt tub and put it in
which
the
is
green
amazing.
bin.
But this is the thing, I often open up my fridge and I'm like, look at the amount of plastic in there. It's really hard.
Oh yeah, no, like when you do a full shop and you come home and you empty your fridge and then you empty out your bits going into your fridge, like I leave like the pile of recycling, the pile for the food bin, and I'm like, oh, like it's insane.
And some of that is unnecessary. It's like,
so
why
unnecessary.
am I having to buy 3 peppers in plastic? Like, why aren't they just loose?
Yeah.
So again, the kind of legislation that's coming in, and in Ireland, like I think Aldi are on track to be plastic free by 2025. Like some stuff is going to start happening.
And they are better.
They are.
They're better
give
than
you the
Lidl.
options.
If I do a shop with sorry guys,
it's true.
And my sister's boyfriend is the store manager at Lidl. So sorry. But when I do a shop at Aldi, I have...
You notice it?
Yeah, I notice it big time. Yeah, because I'm really conscious.
Yeah.
Really, really, really conscious about it.
So the brands like that who are going to do the change for us, that's going to make a massive, massive difference. Just in our day-to-day, we won't have to think about it. Like how great if we didn't have to think about there being no plastic. Like a lot of that stuff we can't control, and it comes down to you with beauty as well. A lot of the time you do generate waste. You can't help it.
Yeah.
So hopefully brands will start making the changes that make it easier for you and for us to generate less waste. It's just going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, definitely. And then Car Zone Ireland, talk to me a little bit about this, because I want to buy an electric car.
Same.
Really, really want to buy an electric car. So then when I saw that you were doing this series, I was like, oh my God, genius. But that's what I mean about the content, and that's where that question comes from, because I saw that you were doing that, and you can explain to everyone what that actually is. But when I saw that, I was like, this is the type of content I want on my feed. This feels positive.
Yes.
This isn't giving me the like doomsday feeling of climate change. This is giving me, brilliant.
Yeah.
Like
100%. And like Ireland, we are a nation of drivers, simply because we don't really have a great public transport. We don't.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are living rurally. And so like people kind of have to drive. It's the way the country's been set up. So switching to electric is such an amazing option, because it is going to allow a lot of our carbon footprint to just disappear, because a lot of people will be able to leave fuel behind. And especially this year, the cost of fuel, as the petrol driver myself, I actually can't talk about it. It makes me sick. It's gone so expensive.
Insane.
And like this comes back to again what I was saying. Like I think people assume that like I like drive an electric car and I like float around the place. Like I can't afford to buy an electric car. They're really expensive. So I did this partnership and content series with Carzone because I was like, okay, I want to buy an electric car, but how much is it going to cost? I'm renting. How am I going to charge it? I live in Cork. Will I be able to drive the whole way home to Cork? Or am I going to have to stop for 2.5 hours, like watch a Netflix series and then drive the rest of the way? Like, what are the practicalities behind this?
And they're all the questions. Yeah.
That everyone has. So the series, basically, we met 3 people who you probably are familiar with. I drove around with them in either their electric or hybrid, and I asked them those questions. And because they all have really different lifestyles, they all had different answers. They all had different approaches. Like Erica Cody was amazing. She drives to a lot of gigs and she just wants something small, zippy, that will get her the distance and home, that she can do a quick change in. And she was like, this car is perfect. I literally charge it once and I get like a week out of it. So it dispelled a lot of the myths I had. Now, obviously, the people who are featured are working with car brands, so they haven't had to make that initial purchase. But what Carzone is trying to do is introduce people to like secondhand electrics.
Yeah, because once that market opens, then it's there for everyone then.
100%. And it really is opening and it's becoming a lot cheaper. Like the first early adopters who bought electric cars, it was so expensive. And there were grants and stuff, but you still needed to be in a good position to buy it.
Yeah.
But now it is a lot of people who are renting and a little bit more casual. So we're definitely getting on that track. And I'm the same. It's my goal to switch over, but it just takes a bit of time, and it's great to do the research and be ready to go when it happens. But again, there is that initial kind of purchasing power that you need to have.
Yeah, definitely. My dad bought a full electric, and my mum had one as well. So I've been in them. I love them. Really, really want them. Really, really want one. Been in. So my dad's got the Nissan Leaf,
which is gorgeous. And then we did a Hyundai Kona, and then the Ioniq. Oh yeah, I've been there. Like,
yeah,
very
fab cars. No, really, really want one, but it was really interesting to see. So I urge people to go and watch that series on your Instagram. It's really, really good, especially if you're thinking of buying.
100%.
Because whenever I say it to anyone, they're like whenever anyone buys a new car and it's not electric now, I'm like, why?
Well, this is the thing,
right? Why
did
you do that?
If you do have the opportunity to take a loan or finance or whatever it is to get a new car, you'd be crazy not to, because like the cost of fuel, that is only going to go one way. It's only going to become higher taxed, more expensive. Like electric now is just such a no-brainer, especially when there's going to be more charging points. And
oh yeah, and they're everywhere anyway.
So yeah. I agree. I think at this stage, if you can look at it, it's such a no-brainer. It's going to make your life, okay, you've the initial purchase, but then like for the guys, Dave from 2FM told me that his car costs him about €2 a month.
Yeah.
To run.
Oh yeah. My dad worked it out, like with the repayments every month, I'm paying more
with fuel
than he's paying. Like,
so like that,
and he got on, he financed it or whatever you call it. Yeah. Like he didn't buy it outright.
Yeah.
So he pays it every month.
Yeah.
But he is paying less than what I'm paying. And I'm like, it's mental. And I drive like the length of the country for weddings, so I'm like, no, definitely get one.
No brainer, especially now that the range is extended. I think like a lot of people had range anxiety where like they were like, if you're like, I have to go to a job and I'm going to have to stop for an hour in Tullamore, like you don't have that.
You couldn't do it.
But now that the battery life is so much better and you can drive up and back, like it really is going to be a massive thing over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what is next for Jo?
Oh my God, I'm literally facing into my last year of college. So I have the fear. I'm trying to enjoy these last days of like no assignments and no study. So I'm going back to my final year and my dissertation. I'm actually really excited about the dissertation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd say you're buzzing about that.
I'm buzzing.
Because you've done so much pre-research anyway.
Yeah, I know, and I'm talking about things all the time, but I'm really excited. I'm actually going to look at, I think, period products and women's health.
Okay.
Because plastic period products are a massive polluter in the world, but they're what we all use. And sorry, when we're teenagers, it's just what we've been given, and like we don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
But just looking at the implications for human health and the health of the planet. So I'm really excited about that. I'm still working away on the podcast, and then I'm writing. So I'm delighted to be back writing. I've got a column with the Sunday Times every Sunday if you want to read it.
Amazing.
Tackle a little subject there. And then Irish Country Mag, I write for them every issue as well. And then other than
I bought that this month.
Oh, thank you so much. Go you. And then other than that, I
still buy magazines.
But thank you. We have to keep print alive. I love them too.
Yeah, I love them.
They're always
and you see, I don't throw them away. So like I keep them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've all my old Vogues.
But especially for you as a creative, I feel like there's so much inspiration.
Yeah, I
in
just
them.
needed this month especially. I was like, September Vogue always brings me to buying magazines. Even if I don't buy Vogue all year, I'll buy September issue.
Yeah.
And then I just happened to pick up loads then. And then I had seen on your Instagram that piece you done for Country Mag. So I was like, I'm going to get that.
Such a great Irish magazine and like supporting local people. So yeah, still going with that. And then I'm literally, any spare time I have, I'm on like Instagram or TikTok trying to do like small little 1 minute like bite size, kind of all the stuff we've talked about today. But like, if people have like 30 seconds or a minute, what can I educate them on, or
Very good,
what can they change today? Like, I do a lot of like 5 simple swaps to make in the kitchen, the bathroom, whatever. So really accessible ways that people can like look into, and then maybe the next time they run out of something, they'll think twice about it. So just peddling my sustainable wares.
No, and it's so good. And it actually falls in line as well, like our sponsor for the podcast. Yeah, Ihe Apothecary. So they're completely...
Who I had never heard of. I actually...
Had you not?
Oh my God, until I listened.
Happy.
And I'm obsessed. I can't wait to try this stuff. I'm going to use their discount code and I'm going to treat myself to some stuff.
Good.
Even like the biodegradable
stuff coming your way.
Oh, the biodegradable sheet. Like, what a brilliant idea.
The whole thing.
Incredible.
Is biodegradable. It's amazing. And I actually get all of my brides... My one thing is, when they come for a trial, the first thing I say is, I'm not going to ask you to go and buy like shed load of products, but I do ask you to get sheet masks for the kind of 2 weeks beforehand.
Just to hydrate. And
it's like an extra little bit of oomph. And actually, it's so funny because if you watch J-Lo's documentary, her recent documentary, like I get brides to put them on in the morning as well. And some people are a bit like, oh, is that not a bit much? And I'm like, watch J-Lo in her documentary. She has sheet masks on before, like you see a glimpse of her with them on her before shows. I'm like, they are actually such an incredible way for that extra oomph. So then when Ihe like got involved, I was like, this is perfect, because one, the two that they do are genuinely incredible. But then I also feel like I'm asking people to purchase something that's biodegradable. So
which
I feel so much better about
zero
it.
Waste. You usually
zero
use
waste.
It and then it's going to I just think that's unbelievable.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, it just fell nicely with your episode as well.
Obsessed. When I heard that, when I was listening, I was like, this is amazing. And like an Irish company, and like that's what it comes back to what we were talking about. That makes it a no-brainer for a consumer. They don't have to do anything.
Exactly.
It's not on them. It's like, this is already, the work is done for me. I literally can just get rid of this and know it's going to degrade.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Exactly. But Jo, thank you so much for joining me. I definitely think there'll be a part 2. Definitely, because we just didn't even touch on like all of the other all the other avenues that we could talk about with this. So I definitely think you'll be back if you'll come back.
I will.
But thank you so much. I will share all of the information over social over the next couple of weeks so that people can know where to find different pieces and your podcast and all of the things that we talked about. But thank you so much.
Robin, thank you so much for giving me the platform. And I know it's a topic that people are a little bit allergic to and they cringe when they see it. But I think the way that you've approached it has just been so open and so normal and has really made it something that people can latch onto. So thank you so much for listening to me.
No, thank you.